Okay, this is going to be a video talking about fractions, what a fraction means, how to draw a fraction, how to understand a fraction. So fractions have a few parts. We have the numerator, which is the top number, and then we have the denominator, which is the bottom number. The denominator, the bottom number, tells us how many pieces it would take to make one whole. So how many pieces it takes to make a whole. The numerator tells me how many pieces I have. So if I wanted to draw this fraction, I need to start by drawing a whole. And the denominator tells me how many it takes to make a whole. So I'd have to break it into 5 pieces. But then the numerator tells me how many pieces I have. So I have 2 of those pieces. I have 2 out of the 5 it would take to make the whole thing. So I have a numerator and I have a denominator. So I'm going to give you 3 fractions. I want you to draw all 3 of them and then unpause the video. All right, so my denominator tells me how many pieces it takes to make one whole. So in this one, it takes 4 pieces to make a whole. My numerator tells me how many I have. So I have 3. That's what 3/4 looks like. 7/8. I should also say when we read it, we read the top number, the numerator, and then the denominator. So this is 7/8, 3/4. So my denominator tells me how many it takes to make one whole. So there would be 8 boxes. My whole is split into 8 boxes. And then my numerator tells me how many I have. So I have 7 of those boxes. Last one, 1/2. My denominator tells me how many my whole is broken into, or how many it would take to make one whole. My numerator tells me how many pieces I have. So I split it into 2, and I have 1 of them. Now there are also fractions called mixed numbers, which means I have a mix of fractions and whole numbers. So if I had the number 1 and 1/4, I have a whole number, and I also have a fraction, so I have a mix, I have both. So if I wanted to draw this, I would draw my 1 whole first. It's like I have 1 whole candy bar, so I get to color in the whole thing. And then I have 1/4 of a candy bar. So my denominator tells me how many pieces my whole is split into, how many it would take to make one whole. And then my numerator tells me how many I have. So I have 1. 1 whole and 1/4. So we have mixed numbers, which is a whole number with a fraction. We also have improper fractions. An improper fraction is when I have a numerator that is greater than the denominator. So the same rules still apply. My denominator tells me how many pieces it would take to make one whole, or how many the whole is split into. So this whole would be split into 3. And my numerator still tells me how many I have. So I have 7, 1, 2, 3. But the problem is I've already filled it up. So I have to draw another box. So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I can keep going because I need to get to 7. And now I have all 7 pieces from my numerator, but you can see that an improper fraction, it just means that there's more than one whole. So we can actually change an improper fraction into a mixed number. So 7/3, I get 7 1/3 pieces because this is 1/3 and that's 1/3. They're all 1/3. And if I wanted to change it into a mixed number, I need to write how many wholes I have. Well, here's one whole, there's one whole. So I have 2 wholes, and then my leftovers, which is 1/3. So 7/3 is the exact same thing as 2 and 1/3. Because 2 means I have 2 wholes, 1, 2, and then I have 1/3. So it gets you to the exact same place. Now sometimes when you add fractions or when you subtract or multiply, you'll end up with an improper fraction. So you might end up with something like this. How about 15 tenths? You can draw it to change it into a mixed number. So the 10 would tell me that in my whole number, it takes 10 to make one whole. And my numerator tells me how many I have, so I have 15. I'm just going to put a little dot in it. 8, 9, 10. So I was only able to fill in 10, so I need to draw another box. And I was at 10, so I just keep counting 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I can change this into a mixed number by writing how many wholes I have, and I have 1 whole, and then writing my leftover. So my denominator here is still going to be 10 because it still takes 10 pieces to make a whole, but I don't have 15 because this is my 1 whole. I only have 5. So it is 1 and 5/10. Another way that I like to change improper fractions to mixed numbers, I like to pull out 1 whole. So 1 whole is, if it takes 10 pieces to make the whole thing, 1 whole would be 10 tenths. And if I took 10 tenths out of 15 tenths, then I would have 5 tenths left over. Well, 10 tenths is the same thing as 1 whole, so 15 tenths is really 1 and 5/10. So let's do another one like that. If I had 8/3 and I was trying to change it into a mixed number, because right now it's an improper fraction, it's more than 1 whole. Well, I can take out 1 whole, which is 3/3, and if I did that, then I would have 5/3 left. So I've got 1 whole here, and if I have 5/3, then I can take out another 1 whole, which is 3/3, and I would have 2/3 left. Now I don't have enough to take out another 1 whole, but I was able to make 2 wholes, 1, 2, and 2/3. And then I could draw that if I took and drew my wholes first. I have 1, 2 wholes, and then I have 2/3, which means my 1 whole is split into 3 pieces, and I have 2 of them. Now, if I give you a mixed number, like 3 and 1/5, we can change that into an improper fraction. So 3 wholes, 1 whole would be 5/5, 2 wholes would be another 5/5, 3 wholes would be another 5/5. Got 1, 2, 3 wholes, so I'm getting rid of that, and now I just need to count up what I have. I have 5, 10, 15 fifths plus my 1/5, so I have 16 fifths. Or if I wanted to see it in a picture, I have 1 whole, 2 wholes, 3 wholes, and on the last one I only have 1/5. Well, if I want to change this into an improper fraction, I just have to figure out how many fifths I have. Well, in each of these, I could split them into fifths easily, and I know that I have all of them, so I just have to fill in every box because it was 3 wholes. So I have 5/5 here, 5/5 here, 5/5 here, and 1/5 there. And if I add all of that up, I get 16/5. I hope this helps you when you're drawing your fractions and going from improper numbers or improper fractions to mixed numbers and back and forth.